Hey there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. I'm your host, PattSun, and today we're gonna be taking a look at r/surviving infidelity, where OP is now stuck in a very shitty situation. Let's begin. I lost my friends for my soon-to-be ex-wife. Posted by Reddit user PattyC85.
We met 7 years ago. At the time, she would get some major breakdowns whenever I gave my attention to my small group of friends. Over the years, her insecurity went away completely. As a result, I did lose contact with my friends. They all went in the direction of having lots of babies and doing the whole live, laugh, love thing. We've never wanted kids, but instead wanted and did travel all over the world. It was very much us against the world. Been married for a year and found out she was having an affair. Same old story, she was acting different for a while, said she needed some time alone. Me trusting her fully gave her anything she needed, including space. Of course, space meant she was actually screwing a colleague. Something didn't sit right with me, and to my shame, one night, not being able to sleep, I snuck her phone and snooped through it. We all know how that went. I took my wedding ring off and left it on her phone, and that was that. Of course, there was begging and pleading. A mistake was made. Yada yada. I told her it wasn't a mistake. She didn't slip and accidentally fall on a penis. It has been going on for weeks or months. Then she said it was over and she didn't talk to him anymore. I told her throwing her marriage away for someone she just as easily discards just makes you an even worse person. Of course, she hasn't stopped seeing him. She wanted to fix things, therapy for her, etc. I told her that even if we patched things up, I could never trust her again. In 10 years' time, she texted me that she would have to work late. Anxiety. A text from someone in the evening. Anxiety. No thank you, I'll pass. She's trying to find an apartment or place to stay, which isn't easy in my country. Our current apartment is a bit too expensive for her to afford on her salary, so at the moment we are currently stuck in limbo until she can move out. We'll get divorced ASAP, but the papers registering our marriage aren't even back yet. Slow red tape. So currently without friends, family lives abroad, and kinda sucks, taking care of my cats while my soon-to-be ex-wife is sleeping around. Fuck me. TLDR, could use some friends who despise cheaters.
And then, we have this comment exchange between OP and a few other Reddit users.
The divorce will be a 50/50 split according to my lawyer. In my country, judges don't really care about adultery much, even with evidence. That being said, I won't need to pay partner alimony or anything, so it will be a clean break. I don't think I'll even attempt to blow up their careers, honestly. I'm not that vengeful of a person. She can make the other guy perfectly miserable for all I care. I just want to get away. Let her work know after the divorce is final. Go out with a bang. Lol. You've only been married a year. There won't be anything to squabble about in the divorce. Stop being nice and blow up their careers, and absolutely tell the AP's wife. You should have kicked her out and told her to go stay with a friend until she can find her own place. Hell, I would have dropped her off at a P's home.
I have realized that I don't want kids, and I don't know how to tell my wife. How do I tell her?
Did you try working the shaft?
Classy.
Good work now.
Posted by Reddit user ThrowRAPop.
Hi all. Really unsure of how to approach this. Been googling and still really unsure. Also using a throwaway since my wife knows my account. We met in high school and official started dating in college. We have now been married for 6 years. Since we first started dating, we have both always had the same plan. We'll focus on our careers. Once they both get to a good level, we would move into together and get more serious, then get married. We also discussed kids, and we both wanted 2 kids. So now we have great careers, been married for a few years, and bought a house together last year. For now, my wife is working on a massive project and is in and out the state for the next 5 months. After that, our plan is to start working on building a family. I've spent the last 2 years saving up and already have 2 small college funds. I never really thought I wouldn't want kids. However, the last 6 months, anytime my wife has brought up the kids, I've felt very hesitant. My wife has been out of state for the last week, and I spent some time thinking, and it suddenly hit me last night. I don't want kids. Firstly, I don't want to do this over the phone. I will see my wife in person next weekend, so I have some time to collect my thoughts, but I'm terrified that this may end in divorce. The reason I don't want kids is because I'm worried how the world will turn out, economy or global warming and such. I really enjoy our autonomy we have currently and I don't want to give that up. The costs involved are also kinda insane. We could afford it, but it would come at a big lifestyle change. Most of the reasons are very selfish. The way I see it is either we divorce, which I really don't want, I love her more than anything and love our life, or I just suck it up and likely be miserable. Any advice on how to bring this question up, please? It's more sensitive too, as we will only have a week or so together. TLDR, been together with wife for 13 years, married for 6. Both agreed we wanted kids and wanted 2 kids. We planned our lives around it. Recently I realized I don't want kids and I don't see that changing. How should I approach this with my wife? Edit. Thanks for the advice, y'all. I've written down all my reasons and intend to tell her ASAP. Just to clear up a few things. I genuinely wanted kids up to very recently. I had a shit childhood and I really wanted to change with my own children. I'm the one that set up all of the plans, really. And it's only recently when our friends have started having kids that my wife has been more interested on when we will start. All of our savings are solely in my wife's name. We both have good jobs and we have always just split it such that I take care of all expenses and she saves all the money. The amount is a large sum, and if things don't work out, I intend to leave all the money and the house to her. We had a deal and I'm the one backing out. I never ever wanted her hurt, which is honestly what I'm most worried about, even more so than being alone and heartbroken. However, you are all correct. There's no point in me sucking it up and just having kids to stay married if I will end up resenting our kids and her in 10 to 15 years. After her sister had kids in her early 40s, but another sister struggled, we went to the clinic and the doctor said she has the remainder of her 30s. It's still not ideal, given she's busy with work for the next 6 months plus, then has to start over, which could take a few years. Thanks again for the advice, everyone.
OP, if you really are serious about not having kids anymore, then please have a very serious conversation with your wife. Don't waste any more of her fertile years and just tell her as quickly as possible so she can make decisions going forward regarding her life. Unless she also changed her mind and doesn't want to have kids, it will likely end in divorce, and it should. Trust me, as someone who experienced this himself, to have or not to have kids is not something a couple can compromise on. And now for today's final story. Revenge on a client who tried to throw me under the bus. Posted by Reddit user called in the 90s.
I was pushing 40 and I'd learned a lot of lessons in more than 10 years of legal practice. But one of the most important lessons I learned was from an older lawyer that I worked for as a summer student after the second year of law school. A lawyer has 3 duties, he told me: first to himself, second to the court, and last, the client. Always make sure you come first and the client comes last. The reason? Because clients will fuck you, he said. They'll throw you under the bus without thinking twice. I should have stayed with this lawyer, but being young and an idiot, I had to go work downtown, and I'm still downtown now. But fortunately for me, I remembered this lesson, and it came in handy many years later when a client really did try to throw me under the bus. My client was this mid-sized company that did this and that and owned things here and there, not big enough to be listed, but it did have a pretty sizable real estate portfolio, and one day a building they owned burned to the ground. The company wanted to collect the insurance, so they told Frank, a veteran salaryman, to deal with it. Frank was close to 60 and thought he knew what he was doing. He didn't need me to help him with the insurance claim. He told me he had everything under control. Besides, lawyers are expensive. Some guys really get off on not paying legal fees, and Frank was one of those guys who gloated over every penny that he managed not to pay to the lawyers. I dealt with Frank a lot, and he was always nickel and diming me. The insurer is going to fuck you, I told Frank. It was only by luck that I even knew about the fire and the loss because Frank had not asked for my help. He'd just let it slip one day, and since then, I'd kept on top of him, trying to get him to smarten up. I'd had to fight to get him to send me the proof of loss form to make sure he hadn't messed that up. Frank fucked up a lot, and I wondered sometimes how he had a job. But the proof of loss was okay at least, so that was one less thing to worry about. You don't know that, he said. I could tell he just wanted to get me off the phone. I'm paid to know when insurers are trying to screw my clients, I said, and the insurer is going to screw you. They've been stringing you along for ages with requests and questions and paperwork. But they aren't going to pay you, not unless you sue them. But Frank said he knew what he was doing, that it was all under control, and besides, he got along with the adjuster so great. The limitation period expires in 2 weeks, I said, and once those 2 weeks pass, it will be too late to sue. The moment that limitation period expires, they will stop taking your calls. You'll get a final email saying sorry, you're out of time, and that will be that. Don't leave this until the last minute. Let me sue right now, and you'll have the money in no time. Frank was like, sure, fine, whatever, don't bother me, I got this blah blah blah, and he got off the phone as soon as he could. I sent him the usual email with clear warnings and recommendations, which he ignored. I sent the email again, and then again as the limitation period approached, and again a couple of days before the deadline. I'm going to be at trial, and you won't be able to reach me, my final email said, but you have to sue. You have other firms on your list, so pick one and sue. He didn't bother to reply, and I went off to do my trial. The trial lasted a couple of weeks, and no email from Frank. Then a month passed, and another month, still no email. I figured he must have sorted things out. Maybe Frank was right after all, I said to myself, and then my phone rang. It was Frank. Remember that fire insurance thing we spoke about? We'd only spoken about it like a dozen times. I figured he was calling up to gloat, so I cut to the chase. So they paid out. That's great, Frank, you were right. He asked me what I was talking about, and could he see a copy of the claim. What claim? I said. The claim against the insurer. You know, that claim. Does that mean the insurer didn't pay? I said. He hung up on me, and then a few minutes later, my computer dinged, and there was Frank's email talking about how we spoke, and he told me to sue, and he was worried when I hadn't sent him a copy of the claim, so he was following up to get a copy of the claim. I emailed him back. I take it that the insurer didn't pay you, just like I told you they wouldn't, and now that the limitation period is expired. They told you to jump in the lake, leaving you with a loss in the millions. Is that it? I'd made a mistake by not going over Frank's head when he wouldn't listen to me, but if I'd gone over Frank's head, I never would have received another file from him, so I didn't. But that was then, and this was now, so I tagged Frank's boss in his boss's boss. Plus I tagged Bill, the client's in-house counsel. Bill acknowledged my email right away and called me later that day. Frank messed up, he said, we know that. He's an idiot. So what do we do? So his excuses didn't work. Nope. Bill explained that they'd summoned Frank to a boardroom, but his story didn't add up, given all the warnings I'd sent him. Besides, there would have been no reason for him to keep emailing the insurer if he'd told me to sue. Once the file goes to legal counsel, Frank's role was over. The company knew Frank was bullshitting them. So that's it, then. Bill said, we just lost a couple of $1,000,000. It's okay, I said, explaining that when I realized that Frank was going to fuck up, I issued a claim against the insurer. Because I'd made Frank send me the proof of loss a while earlier, I had enough information that I could sue to preserve the cause of action. Not a great claim and short on details, but good enough. You sued without instructions. Bill said, lawyers aren't supposed to sue without instructions because if you do that, you're personally liable for whatever costs the other side incurs. It's a big deal to sue without instructions. Yup, I said, I sued without instructions. I pulled up a copy of the claim and emailed it to him as we spoke. It's a little rough, I said, but we can always amend. Thank God. Bill said, can I leave it with you? Of course he could. The insurer was a sitting duck, and I knew I'd collect from them, no problem. A few days later, I got a call from another guy who worked for the client, a guy I didn't normally deal with. They had a situation and needed my help. I usually deal with Frank, I said, what's up? What was up was that Frank got called into another meeting, and they handed him a one-page letter, and then he put his little office things in a box, and security walked him past his co-workers to the elevator and escorted him downstairs to the parking lot. Bye-bye, Frank. He was too old to get another job, or at least, not a decent one. It was a life-changing event for Frank, but for me, he was just an anecdote. A cautionary tale that I tell young lawyers sometimes over beers, maybe too often, because I'm getting on in years and I have my favorite stories. I wasn't trying to get revenge on Frank, not at all, and I would have felt a bit sorry for him if he hadn't been trying to throw me under the bus. But the guy who replaced him was great and never nickel and dimed me, so it was all good.
How dumb can you be to even think that you could gaslight and manipulate a lawyer? Frank may be old, but he definitely isn't wise. Viewer support is the best way for me to remain independent and continue bringing you these daily videos, which will always be here on my channels for you to watch absolutely free. So please consider subscribing to me on Rumble and on YouTube. Both will be linked in the description box down below. Thanks for listening, everyone. If you even somewhat enjoyed today's story, make sure to give this video a thumbs up, and if you really like it, consider subscribing to PattSun to never miss a future upload. Stay strong.